The LGL's representative of V3 executed a lane swap against the Unicorns of Love in the most recent match of Worlds 2020 Group B in the play-ins. This resulted in a particularly interesting scenario, and today I'd like to break down what goes into a lane swap. Back in Season 4, we take a look at the evolution of how lane swaps have occurred over time. Players will leash their minions by swapping the bot lane to the top side of the map, allowing the minions to crash back to its own turret, hold it, and freeze it in place, aiming to completely deny the opponent top laner as much CS and EXP as possible. This changed in Season 5 when teams figured out that they could simply fast push the wave and threaten to dive the opponent top laner should he attempt to pick up any of that EXP under his turret itself. And in a bid to have the competitive games more closely resemble that of solo queue, Riot decided to remove lane swaps by introducing bonus resistances to the turrets in the solo lanes, and thus mid lane and top lane turrets would have bonus armor and magic resistances before the 5-minute mark. And in Season 7 and 8 as well, we would see a general lack of the lane swap tactic come true, with the unique exception being the infamous Nocturne game in Season 7, where Gigabyte Marine stole the win off Fnatic using a lane swap stratagem. However, in Season 9, turret platings were introduced into the game. In the past, if you were to go for a lane swap, you would find your bot lane turret being demolished at a rapid pace. However, due to the bonus resistances that turret platings would give your turret as well, it simply meant that you took turrets at a slower pace, and you were simply sacrificing some amount of gold in exchange for the benefits that you could get from lane swaps. And thus, we saw a whole bunch of teams from the Vietnamese scene, such as Sherry Gaming, as well as Low-Key Esports, using this strategy to steal a win of Dub1 Gaming at the Season 9 World Championship. Splice also used such a stratagem to win one game against Fnatic in the Spring Split playoffs. In Season 10, we have seen this quite a fair bit within the European regional leagues, and Rogue tried this as well against G2 in the LEC itself. So what is the breakdown of the modern lane swap? To examine that, we have to figure out why would people want to lane swap in the first place. Now, we can break this down into 4 major reasons. The first is to temporarily, with the keyword being temporary, avoid early game bully matchups in the side lane. The second would be to funnel resources into the AD carry. The third would be to weaken the relative strength of the opponent top laner and isolate the mid lane matchup. After a lane swap, this is usually what tends to happen, with the top laner being both behind in golden EXP as compared to the rest of the map, the jungler usually being on par in general, but due to its increased activity in either having to facilitate dives or to shepherd away the opponent top laner from the relevant golden EXP, he himself will tend to fall behind slightly as well. Mid lane, while they do not gain or lose anything in particular, by virtue of being left isolated and everyone else falling behind in EXP, they will tend to be ahead of the EXP curve, making champions such as LeBlanc and Syndra very ideal candidates for mid lane swap scenarios. AD carries benefit slightly in the gold department in exchange for falling slightly behind in EXP, depending on how the lane swap is executed. While supports they don't soak regular amounts of gold, simply having 3 people or even 4 people sometimes in the lane would also mean that they will fall behind in EXP as a whole. To look at both comps that were drafted by both V3 and Unicorns, there are several questions and several issues based on the 4 criteria that I've listed. For V3, they do have Caitlyn, which does want to bully the bot lane 2v2. Against the likes of Orianna and Nautilus, when you have a set, they should be able to get a push in and be able to take a CS lead and secure some tower plates for themselves. But they do avoid the Sion that can build direct 1v1 matchup. This does not necessarily benefit them in a great way. While funneling resources into AD carry is a good idea, Caitlyn is not like the hyper carries of say a Tristana or a Jinx who are usually the recipients from such a lane swap. Season 10 champion Aphelios would also be a great candidate for this as well. Weakening the relative strength of the top laner, however, seems to be the biggest focus in this case. Having a tank such as Sion, who can simply sit under the turret, get dived and soak the EXP as the wave crashes in, whereas the opponent is playing the likes of a Camille, which does not have the tankiness, nor the ability, nor the revive passive that can allow her to soak EXP should she get dived if she were to try to trade her life for the EXP that's coming in. And isolating the mid matchup, a champion like Galio thrives in being able to take entrenched 2v2s, and you would usually want to be able to make his presence felt on the map. In a lane swap scenario, such abilities and opportunities for his presence to be felt are much greatly reduced, and having the map split allows the opponent mid laner a lot more ease in being able to control his lane. For the Unicorns of Love, this allows the early levels of pressure in which Caitlyn is able to bully the Orianna out. And while they are not playing a traditional AD carry by every means, and using a lane swap into a mage usually tends to be a good idea, having resources be funneled into Orianna is not the worst thing either for Unicorns of Love. Well, of course, if the Camille were to be set behind by this stratagem, she might struggle to get back into the game, but most crucially, No Man's Kassadin will be left isolated in the mid lane matchup, and we'll be able to freely farm and reach the scaling power spikes for Kassadin. Now this game goes terribly wrong for V3 as they have a disastrous level 1 invade, giving a kill with the Camille, and not being able to directly match Caitlyn and Sett into the Camille on the top side of the map from the get-go. Gadget blows his TP and is able to match the Caitlyn, and after the first phase, with the BF sword, V3 repeatedly continues to match Caitlyn into Camille, but by this point, simply having virtue of soak solo in EXP, the Camille has enough levels and enough of a lead on the underleveled Caitlyn and Sett at this point of time to be able to hold them off, and as a result of that, V3 are unable to deny the wave completely from the Camille, and the Camille maintains her farm and EXP gain rather successfully. And as a result of all of this, at 14 minutes, when the tower platings fall, we end up with the setup, with the Unicorns of Love having secured 2 Drakes while V3 was repeatedly trying to swap to find leads for the Caitlyn. And as a result, most notably, we see Kassadin at level 10 with a 25 CS lead and even a kill to his name. With such a smooth early game, No Man's for the Kassadin is able to freely scale, ending the game 11-2-3 for a massive carry performance on his Kassadin. The big takeaway from this is that should a team consider to go for a lane swap, they should carefully consider what are the various factors at play over here. Isolating your Galio into a Kassadin matchup was not the wisest of decisions from V3. If you enjoyed this content, please do drop a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. There will be coverage and recaps of games all throughout Worlds.